Picture this. You're born into a world where job security means your horse doesn't die, your clan doesn't betray you, and your neighbor doesn't turn your wedding into a kidnapping. Now imagine that kid grows up and becomes the man who builds the largest contiguous land empire in history. And the scary part? He doesn't do it with magic. He does it with systems, incentives, logistics, organization, law, and fear as a tool. This is the story of how survival can make you brilliant, and how brilliance can become terrifying. And if you've ever wondered, is my pain making me stronger or making me colder? You're already in this story that we're going deep today, but I'll keep a clear trail. The steppe, why his ordinary world was basically a pressure cooker. The origin, how an abandoned teenager becomes a coalition builder. The method, unity, meritocracy, and military organization. The cost, conquest, terror, and the moral question at the center. The modern mirror, does survival turn you into what you hate? Let's ride. First, the setting, the Mongolian steppe, vast, beautiful, and brutally indifferent. This is not the kind of world where your problems are low motivation. Here, your problem is physics, cold, distance, scarcity, violence. Your protection is your clan. Your identity is your clan. Your food chain is also your clan. And here's the psychological reality of the steppe. Alliances are temporary, betrayal is normal, strength is respected, weakness is harvested. That's the ordinary world that shaped him before he shaped the world. Britannica notes that his early life chronology is uncertain. Even his birth year is debated, which is historian code for. This man arrived so early and so violently that the calendar itself is sweating. When he's about 9, his father Yasugi dies. Britannica describes him as poisoned, and then something happens that tells you exactly what kind of world this is. The family gets abandoned by their former supporters. No condolences. No GoFundMe. Just, sorry about your dad. Also, we're taking the social safety net with us. The steppe version of unfollow, block, and mute. This is the call to adventure in its rawest form. The world removes your protection and asks, what are you now? Here's the part you can't romanticize. Survival creates competence. Yes, but survival also creates scar tissue. Britannica notes he later escaped captivity and began gathering supporters as a teenager. But before supporters, there's hunger. Before empire, there's humiliation. And this is where the modern mirror first appears, because you know this feeling. You were treated like you don't matter, you were underestimated, you had to become sharp just to stay alive, and the question forms quietly. If I harden myself to survive, will I still recognize myself later? In steppe politics, relationships aren't decorations, they're infrastructure. You have alliances, sworn friendships, marriages, networks that decide whether you live. This is where we meet two essential forces. Jamuka, a close companion early on, later a rival in the unification struggle. This arc, friend to enemy, is pure tragedy. Borte, whose abduction by the Merkits becomes a defining crisis in early accounts, including scholarly discussion comparing versions of the story. The abduction isn't just a personal trauma. It's a political signal. You are not safe. Your alliances are not strong enough. Fix it, or be erased. So he does the thing survivors learn to do. He turns pain into a network upgrade. He gathers allies, raises a rescue force, and proves something to the steppe. This family is not disposable. The steppe equivalent of, you tried it. Now watch the group chat turn into an army. At one point, he's captured by rivals and later escapes. Britannica explicitly highlights the escape and the early struggle phase. And here's a key systems breadcrumb. In a world where people follow strength, an escape isn't just freedom. It's marketing. It signals courage and allegiance destiny in the eyes of superstitious politics. This is how power begins on the steppe. Not by announcing it, by surviving what should have killed you. In 1206, An assembly of leaders proclaims him the universal ruler of the Mongol steppe. That date matters because it's the moment the story stops being survivor and becomes state builder. World History Encyclopedia summarizes the new empire as beginning in 1206, with his reign as Great Khan until his death in 1227. Now, how does a man unify clans that have spent generations stabbing each other? Not by asking them to be nice. He does it by changing the incentive structure. Merit over bloodline, discipline over ego, shared spoils, and shared rules and punishment for betrayal. This is where the brutal genius shows up. He builds a system where unity is rewarded and disunity is expensive. Let's go deep. But with breadcrumbs. Breadcrumb 1. Organization, the decimal system. The Mongols use structured military organization, often described in tens, hundreds, thousands, and serious scholarship discusses how imperial institutions formalized this, meaning coordination beats chaos. Breadcrumb 2. Law, often referred to as yasa, but complex. Popular retellings speak of a legal code linked to his rule, often called the yasa. Scholars debate its exact form and how it functioned. More like evolving edicts and an ideal of order than a neat published statute. Book, meaning power lasts longer when rules are predictable. Breadcrumb. 3. Logistics. Speed is a weapon. A large empire requires communication. Later Mongol governance becomes famous for relay post systems, YAM, and rapid message movement. Research literature discusses its development and reforms, particularly as the empire matured, meaning the fastest decision-maker wins. Breadcrumb 4. Fear, psychological warfare. Many sources emphasize ruthlessness as a deliberate tool. Terror could reduce resistance by convincing cities to surrender rather than fight. Meaning, intimidation is a shortcut, with a moral invoice. Humor beat. So yes, he had cavalry, but the real superpower was administration with horse support. Now we reach the darkest question. When you build a machine for survival, what happens when it starts eating the world? One famous ignition point in the westward campaigns involves conflict with the Khwarazmian Empire. A major incident often discussed is tied to Otrar, where a Mongol trade caravan was seized and killed, escalating into full war. Accounts vary in details and blame, but the broad sequence is widely treated as a trigger for invasion. Here's the abyss. Once the violence engine starts, it doesn't politely stop at justice. It expands into conquest. World History Encyclopedia notes the campaigns were ruthless and that mass slaughter appears in medieval chroniclers' accounts. Even if numbers are debated, ask yourself the modern mirror. Right here, if you become dangerous enough to never be hurt again, do you risk becoming the thing you hated? This is why his story refuses to die, because it doesn't flatter us. It exposes us. Hardship can forge strategy, discipline, courage, emotional control, leadership under pressure, but it can also forge numbness, cruelty, obsession with control, ends justify means thinking. And the reason this matters is simple. A lot of people are becoming competent right now through pain, and they don't realize pain is not only a teacher. It is also a sculptor. Here's the gift you bring back from this story. Survival can make you powerful, but power without a moral compass becomes a storm. If you're in a brutal season, if you're building your strength in a hard world, ask yourself one question every time you level up. Am I becoming more capable and still more human? Because the final victory isn't just winning, it's winning without turning into what broke you. If you want more history that explains modern life, subscribe and comment. Survival is not equal to soul. If you've ever felt hardship changing you,